me just wait for my audio to come through on YouTube, and then we'll get started here. Alrighty, and welcome back, everybody. All right, it looks like I'm getting an ad on my own platform. That's hysterical. Okay, as soon as the ad rolls, we're going to get started here. Guys, welcome. Drop your name in the chat if you're new. Welcome back to another live stream. Today we're going to be doing a Geometry Nodes tutorial. This is going to be a pretty fun one. We're going to be creating an aerodynamic simulation in Geometry Nodes, and I'm really excited for this one because this is a sort of a faked method to kind of get a aerodynamic simulation, but regardless, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, and I'm going to show you guys how I would go about doing this, and it's going to get a little bit complex, so hopefully you guys are on board and paying close attention here. All right, let's go ahead and start off by adding a single vert here. Shift A to just find that menu, and then we'll add a single vert. So we just have a vertex in the middle, so we have something to create our geometry nodes off of. You can use any object you want. I'm just doing this for this purpose. All right, we have a brand new geometry node setup. So there's a couple of things we're going to be using here. We're going to be using simulation nodes as well as some other things. What we're going to do is we're going to start with a grid. So I'm going to add in my grid. I'm going to go ahead and pop that in here. I'm going to connect my mesh to the output, and as you can see, we have a grid. I'll go into wireframe mode so you guys can see that. Now, right now, we only have kind of like 4 points. You can see we could increase or decrease the vertices here, and right now, everything looks good. This is exactly what I want. I want to go ahead and flip this on the side because we're going to send a bunch of points from this grid. So I'm going to go ahead and add a transform geometry node, and I want this to be rotated like follows, probably 90 degrees. That's perfect. And then we're going to send a bunch of points from this grid into our simulation. And to do that, we need to first do mesh to points right here. And you're not going to really see anything yet, and I'll explain why as soon as we set up our simulation. All right, we'll go back to solid view. There's our points. We're going to add a simulation zone. Okay, and it's going to look like this. It's going to take an input and an output just like any other Geometry Nodes project would. I'm just going to give this a quick save so that we don't lose any of our work. I'm going to call this simulation, and I'm just going to call it airflow. Airflow. Okay. All right, so basically we're going to take these points, input them into our geometry, okay, into our simulation. So I'm going to move these, import our geometry right here. I'm going to add a join geometry node right here, and this will make sense in a minute. I'm also going to link this right here. Then for our output of our simulation, we'll join that to our group output. So far, everything looks like this, okay? And then if we press play, here, I'll just make this my timeline over here. If I press play, nothing's going to happen. And that's because we're not actually doing anything with these points. We're going to send these points and duplicate them throughout the process. So in order to do that, I'm going to add a set position node right here. And this is going to set the position for our points. Again, if I press play, I'll go back to reset this to 30. If I press play, it's on a loop right now. Nothing's going to happen. And that is because, we're not moving these points. So how much do we want to move these points? Well, I want to move these points in the Y direction, 0.1. And now, if we go ahead and watch, you can see that our points are now being duplicated over and over again, sending them through the simulation. And now it's just like we have to decide what we want to do with these points. And this is where things can get kind of complex. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. All right, so what we're going to do next is we need an object. I'm going to tab out of edit mode here. We need an object to interact with. So let's just go ahead and add a sphere, usually the simplest object to work with these types of simulations. And I'm going to add the sphere right here, kind of just where the points would intersect. Now there's a lot of things. This is not pre-recorded, Mohammed. This is not pre-recorded, I promise. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to go through here. Very first thing we're going to need to do is actually make sure we can deal with our sphere in geometry nodes. So I'm going to go ahead and drag my sphere into geometry nodes right here. All right, there it is right here. And I'm just going to give this a quick save. And before we do anything else, I want to convert all this to curves. So remember, right now we have points. I'm going to do points to curves. Okay, I'm going to place that right here. And you'll notice we have a curve, which is great, but everything's connected, right? And I'll show you how that looks. We'll do mesh, we'll do curve to mesh, okay? And we need a profile. We'll just use a circle. We'll do a curve circle for our profile. And then right here, everything's going to get converted to a curve, which is great. But again, our curve doesn't really look how we want it, right? It just looks like a big jaggedy mess. And that's because all of the points are getting connected at once. We don't want that. It actually took me a while to figure out the solution to this, but I did figure out a solution. Right here, right before we transform our geometry and we have mesh to points, we actually want to go ahead right here, and we want to make a stored named attribute. So we basically want to like capture something about our grid. In this case, I want to capture I'll just say the line position. You can call this literally whatever you want. Okay, now the line position is going to be like which of the indices of the grid did the line come from. In this case, I'll just do an index. That'll be the value right here. Right, so we have the index. Let me just move this down so you guys can see. So again, in this case, we're going to do a, what did I do? Integer, because the index is an integer. Point, that's fine. Line position. And we're going to use this selection to convert to curves. So right here, you'll see it says curve ID group. Well, we're going to go ahead and do named attribute. We're going to type in, well, here it is, right. What did I call it? Line position. There we go, line position, and I think it was an integer attribute. And now, when we press play, we have individual lines. This took me forever to figure out, but now that I figured it out, it looks a lot better. So again, we have our lines, right? And this is basically, you can think of these as smoke flow lines. However many we want, we can adjust that with the grid very easily. So right here, I could just be like 3 and 3, and now we'll have 3 by 3, right? Now you're probably thinking, okay, Kenny, this is great, but like, how do I make this interact with the sphere? Don't worry, we're getting to that part. So again, we have our sphere. I just hit it earlier, but now we have it back. We're actually going to use Raycasting to do this. Now, originally I watched a tutorial by Default Cube, I think it was, or CG Matter, one of the two, and they had a great tutorial on this, but they used a method that I just thought was really complex. So we're going to do something a little bit simpler. I'm going to go ahead and take my geometry output here for our sphere. Again, you can easily modify all this. I'll just do a Raycasting node. Now, in this case, our target geometry is the sphere. We want to figure out, okay, are we hitting the sphere? If so, what can we do with that information? In our case here, okay, I'm going to kind of move all this stuff to the right. All of this right here is converting to a curve, so I'm going to join that, Control J, and I'll just name this real quick, just so we have everything kind of organized. I'll go into my node. I'll call this convert to curve. That way you guys know what's going on here. And then up here, we're going to join this. This right here is going to be detect hit. So we're going to detect if we hit something. Now, when we do hit something, we have to reset the position of our points. So in our simulation right here, right, I'm just going to drag this down. I want another set position node. I'm going to drag these down as well. And I'm going to reset the position based on the hit. So this part is kind of fun because this is like fun to play around with, okay? So right now, I'll just press play so we can see this happening in real time. First of all, we want to decide, okay, what are we messing with? Well, anything that is hit by our Raycast node, we can make that our selection. So I'll go ahead and make that our selection right there. And then if it has a hit position, reset the position of the points to that position. I know things are looking messed up, but they'll get fixed in a second. And then the hit normal is going to be the offset. So what's going to happen here, as soon as I reset, there's one setting I'm missing. And then we want float nearest as well, and we want relative for our sphere objects. Now you're probably noticing, whoa, what's going on here? So believe it or not, is actually working. Let me move this down a little bit, the sphere, so you guys can see. So right now, you can see that our sphere is actually getting hit, and our points are getting redirected around our sphere. And the reason you can't see it happening is because we don't have enough frames. So let me go ahead and continue that. Now you can see, right, we've hit our sphere, and now our points are being redirected. Now remember, we're converting our points to curves over here. But right now, the curves don't look that good. And that's because we're using polycurves and not Bezier. So I'm going to go ahead and convert those to a different spline type. So I'm going to type in set spline type. I'm going to set that right here. I'm going to change it to Bezier. And then I'm going to set the handle type to left and right. And now we're going to get something that's more curved, and it's starting to look a little bit more natural here. I'm pretty happy with this so far. So now you can see everything is getting redirected, and now we're going to have to like clean a few things up. So I'm going to be referring back to my original nodes. Let me get back to my original nodes and make sure I'm showing you guys every single thing that I did here. This node setup is going to get pretty complex, so just keep that in mind. It's going to get a little crazy. One of the other things that I did do, okay, here it is. All right, so one of the other things I did do is you can check the ray length. That's fine, 100 meters, whatever. That's plenty of time for it to interact. -1, that's just the direction of the ray itself. So you can keep all this as is. You can also experiment with original and relative, but usually relative gets the job done better. You can see original doesn't really do anything. And then right here for our offset, we can actually set a vector scale, which I think what I did last time. So vector math, there we go, set vector math. And we're going to add that right here, right before our offset. Again, this is going to get a little messy, but it's going to work nicely. We'll set it to scale, and then we can mess around with this scale here. So if we want it to be more like 0.5, you can kind of see it's like a little bit closer to the edge there. If we want it to be more like 0.2, you can see how it's even closer to the edge there, but now you have these kind of like warped versions of what we had before. So far, though, this is working how I want it to work, and now it's just a matter of adding on to this, right? We just take a look at the comments real quick. This is great. I just watched same CG Matter tutorial, different take on this. Yeah, so originally I did do this a little bit differently, and then I made my own version because I wanted to figure out how I could do this on my own. All right, sorry guys, got to get my coffee in. All right, so we reset the scale, and then another thing we're going to do, let me just double check. Okay, so another thing we can do is with our sphere, you can see that they're sort of touching the edge of the sphere. We can actually fix this. We can make it seem more like a wind tunnel simulation, and we can have things flow around the sphere. I can just simply put in a scale. What did I do? Scale elements. We'll do scale elements right here, and this is basically the size of the sphere. Right now, the actual size of the sphere won't change. This is just for the simulation. So if I put 2 in here, just for example, well, I want you guys to see what happens. Notice how now everything looks like it's on the outside of the sphere. Now, obviously, 2 is a little bit exaggerated. I'll do something more like 1.2. All right, let's go back. So 1.2, you can see from a side view, right? You can kind of see how there's a little gap in between where these things get separated, right? So this looks a lot nicer. Another thing I want to mention is this value right here for the set position, this 0.1, is basically the speed at which these pieces move. So if I set this to 1, they're going to move a lot faster, and you're going to get much more flowy lines. And now we have something that is going to kind of go around our sphere much quicker, and it's going to find that kind of nearest path with raycasting. It's going to very quickly go around our sphere. Now, right now you can see we're only getting a simulation on the bottom half of our sphere. We want the top half as well. In order to do that, we're actually going to have a separate simulation for the top half of the sphere. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Let me just double check my nodes real quick and see if I'm missing anything important. Oh yes, there is something very important. Right now, our lines travel off into space. We don't want that, right? We want our lines to stop at a certain point. I also found a very clever workaround for this. Let me go ahead and make some room in my simulation. So right before our simulation ends, we want to delete the geometry that we don't need. Let's just say we want everything to stop like right about here, maybe like the 5 or 6 position on the y-axis. Well, I can go ahead and put in a delete geometry node. I'll add that right here. Now if we press play, everything's gone. And that's because we're not deciding what to delete. We need to have a selection for our geometry. In this case, the way that I made this work is I took our position of our nodes, or sorry, regular position. I took the position of our points. I separated the XYZ, just looking to make sure I'm doing this right. Yep, separate XYZ, and then we want to figure out, okay, where do we want to look for this? We want to look for this on the Y, and then from right here, we can add a compare node. And in this case, we just want to compare and see if Y is greater than like 5. And if it is, we want to delete that geometry. So now you can see right here, oh my gosh, if I can do anything on Blender. There we go. Right here is about the 5 point. I'll just make it 10 to prove my point here. And there you go. So now everything's going to stop at 10, right? So you can plug this into the group output as well if you want to control this, like if you want to sell this as like a shader or something. But right now you can control where those points stop. That way Blender's not like, yo, dude, you're making me do too much, right? Stop the simulation at some point. There it is. When you start to add more to your grid, like if you have like 20 by 20, right? Now, look, I can already see that Blender's like slowing down right now. But now you have all these points that are trying to move around your sphere, right? Now you have something crazy to work with. Here's a really cool trick to not let things slow down. Your curve circle profile here, where we're converting to curves, we don't need a resolution of 32. Let's try like a resolution of 3. And let's see what the frame rate is now. Oh, much quicker. Look at how quick that is. It's lightning fast. Perfect. And don't forget, you can adjust the radius as well. If you want something that's a little bit thinner, that's fine too. Let's try a resolution of like 5. And now look at that. Perfect. All right, this is looking really good. I'm really, really happy with this. And just to show you that it does work in real time, because a lot of people keep trying to tell me that it doesn't. Look, I can update this in real time. Now you can see there's a few that go through, and we're going to fix that. I'm going to show you guys how we're going to fix that. There's quite a few things that are involved with this process. But I do want to take our sphere in edit mode. I want to scale it down, and I want to duplicate it again to show you kind of like how these nodes can interact. You can kind of see in 3D view here like what's happening, right? Now again, this is not physics based. This is just math based. This isn't like, there's no real physics happening here, but I still think the effect is cool enough to kind of cover. So that's what we're doing. All right, let's go back into our nodes. I'll just go to my side view so you guys can kind of see what's going on here while we're adjusting our nodes. We give this a quick save. So let's clean a little bit of this up, and we're going to group some things, and we're going to add some variation with noise textures as well. Very first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to hide all these nodes because I want to bring them into a group together. All right, there we go. I'll highlight these, I'll group them, I'll join them, and then I'll just label this first lines, because these are the first set of lines. We don't really need our group input yet. This is to detect a hit, and we're going to be using all of this stuff over again. Okay. I'm just hiding all this to kind of collapse it a little bit. You guys will see why I'm doing all this. All right, so all of this right here, this is all the first part of the simulation. Now we need to simulate the top half of the lines. So I'm quite literally going to duplicate all this, right? So now I have a complete duplicate. I am going to go to the very end where the group output is. I'm going to add a join geometry node, and I'm going to join the output of the second simulation right there. Okay, hopefully you guys are following along. But in this case, we're going to do things a little bit differently, right? Because for our first lines, now this is going to be our second lines, right? And what we're going to do in this case is we're actually going to change our stored name attribute to line position 2, because we don't want to have the same lines twice, right? You can kind of see what's going on here. This is just points right now. And that's because Blender doesn't like really know what's going on. We're going to help Blender out. And when we convert our curves, again, I'm going to duplicate this. Oopsies. I'm going to duplicate this. When we convert our curves right here, we're going to convert our points, and we're going to bring our mesh into the join geometry. Now look, we're going to get some messed up stuff, and that's because it doesn't know the second ID name, which is line position 2. As soon as we add that, it's going to fix everything. But wait a second, where's our top lines? The reason they're not there yet is because our Raycast node is casting on this axis. We want it to cast right here on this top axis. So we're going to do -1, 0, and it should be working. And it is. Now the reason nothing's being affected is because our spheres need to be moved up a little bit. And now you can see that everything should be working properly. Let's double check, make sure everything looks good. Yep, scale looks good. We have the correct thing selected. Double checking. Everything should be working properly, but they should be going up. Let's double check. Oh, you know what? It's the second value, I think. There we go. Okay, so my fault. Second value on ray direction. So for our second simulation, we want the ray direction to be -1 right here. Kind of depends on the direction that the lines are facing, but you kind of figure it out as you go. All right, so far, everything's looking great. Now what we can do is we can start to organize things a little bit more. And then with our grid, right, remember we have a size, which is like the spacing of everything. And then we also have vertices. In this case, I probably don't want that many vertices, right? So I'm going to add a value node. And let's just do 5 vertices for everything. So I'll plug this in right here. And I'll also plug this in for our top grid, which is way up here. So I'll go ahead and plug those same values in on our vertices for the top grid. And now we can control how many vertices we have per grid, if that makes sense. And now this is starting to look like really cool. And now we can add some variation to this, and we can also just like, we can start to have fun with the settings and see what kind of results that we can get. And this is like, I love this stuff. I could like literally do this stuff all day, which is kind of what we're doing. So let me go ahead and show you guys how to add some noise variation to our simulation. So we'll start with the top simulation right here. In this case, we have a set position node, which is just setting the original position. But I want to go ahead and do this again. I want to reset the position again, but this time I want to offset it by a noise texture. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. I'm I'm going to add a noise texture here. And if you simply plug this into the offset, it's going to look absolutely wild, right? This is not what we want. And the reason it doesn't really do much yet is because we have to connect the scene time. And this is similar to the approach that CG Matter had. We're going to connect the frame count to, well, we have to change this to 4D. We're going to connect the frame count to the W, which is kind of like the phase. And now you can see it's starting to move, which is great. But now how do we actually only make this move in a way that we want? Well, right now it's affecting the X, Y, and the Z. So we want to go ahead and find the combine XYZ node, and we only want to affect the Y. And now you can see we have some jittery aspects to this. And if we reduce our scale to like 0.5, let's try like 0.1. Now you can see we kind of have this wavy motion, which is kind of what I'm looking for. Maybe even a little bit less than that. Now we kind of have this wavy motion, which I really appreciate. And I feel like this looks really good. So I'm going to add the same thing to my bottom simulation, right? Again, after set position, I'll duplicate. And then for the offset, I'll plug in the thing that I had from before. And now both lines should be wiggling a little bit. And now we have some like random variation to our lines that I think looks pretty good for, I don't know, for what we have. I mean, again, this is not technically like real physics, but it does look cool. All right, a couple other things we'll go over is, again, the offset, like the speed. I just want to show you what happens if I like knock this speed down to 0.5. It's going to be slower, but it's going to be like also just like a little bit more accurate as well. Again, this is not perfect. We have things that are going through our objects, right? It's not perfect by any means, but it's interesting to kind of like watch how this works. Now, I haven't tried the additional raycast position. Right now, we're doing 2 different raycasts, but if we did a third, could get something interesting. All right, let's go ahead and keep modifying this. I want to see what else I added to my original file so we can add more. All right, we have everything being deleted at a certain point. Good. We have scaling of our elements. We have our grid. We have our index. We have our set position, delete geometry, switch, set handle type. Yep. So far, things are looking really good. And this is the part where you can kind of start to play with the settings a little bit. So maybe I want to see like 20 lines on each. Whoa! Now we got something crazy. But again, we're getting these weird results because I think our scale is a little bit off for our scale elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try like 1.5 for the top one. I just want to see what that looks like. I'm going to try it for the bottom as well. Again, it's all about experimentation. I really like that. I feel like that looks pretty good. But again, you're going to get some lines that go through. And the reason they go through is because of the speed of the simulation. I just want to try a couple things. I'm going to try 0.2 for our set position here. Again, this is going to significantly slow things down. But you can see how it's a little bit more accurate, right? And this is actually really cool because if you look in the wireframe mode, you can see how things like really aren't touching. And again, how often the thing updates is going to ultimately determine like the accuracy. Like right now, it's not updating very frequently, so it has time to move around the sphere. I hope that makes sense, guys. Tell me if I'm not making sense, but you can see right now, if we look in the middle of the simulation, it has time to get around that sphere, right? And what's really cool is you can kind of see like these areas of turbulence. If we go into solid mode, you can see these like areas of like quote unquote turbulence or like high density pressure, whatever you want to call it. I just think it looks so cool. You can kind of see like where the lines are having trouble getting across, which is like down here. And you can see they kind of get bunched up in between these two a little bit. I find this stuff so interesting. Let's go ahead and reduce the line count to 10 and let's keep playing this back. This is just looking so awesome. I'm really happy with this. I'm happy I found a method that I feel like looks pretty decently believable. Let's test a few other objects and see kind of like how this can affect different objects. Also, I would love, if you guys are still watching, I would love a comment, see what you guys think so far. Again, I'm going to zoom out, show you guys the whole node structure real quick so you can take a screenshot and then we'll add some other objects in. So I'll just do a quick overview. This top half right here, hold on, this top half, I believe it's all this. Yep, this right here, I'll join this. This is the first part of the simulation. This is the second, right? So we have the first part, which is the top lines, and then the second part of the lines. And yes, I'm sure there's a way to get everything all in one simulation. I'm just not 100% sure how to do that, and I don't really like feel like it right now, and I feel like I'm pretty happy with what we have. And it's not lagging Blender, so I'm not like that upset about it. All right, what was I going to do? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and delete one of these objects. Let's add a cube. I'm just in edit mode right here because I want to show you guys like what this can look like. Let me show you. Look at that in real time. How cool is that? Look at that. Now, one thing I haven't solved yet, you guys can kind of see, you see right above the cube where we're getting this like weird like vortex thing. I don't know if that's physics-based or what this is. It kind of looks like it could happen if there was real flow lines, but I don't know. I think this is so cool. Like, again, I could just mess with this all day. Like, a good example, if you like took this cube, you rotated it, scaled it down, like, look at that. You can kind of see like wherever I put this cube, and then look, I can like block the flow lines from the sphere. How cool is that? I hope I'm showing a good angle of this. You can also see right here, we're kind of getting this like build up in the middle. And I love that because I do feel like that's somewhat physics-based. Like there would be air that would get bunched up and trapped in between these two objects. But then what if we took this face here on the cube, scaled it down so that we kind of have this like beveled edge? I don't know, like something like that. Let's see. Now we have this like airplane wing. Like, would things travel with it? Let me just select this. Would things travel with it how they would? Oh my gosh. See, that's so like I didn't expect that. Let me delete our sphere. And let me select this thing. And I just want to see. Wow, that's really cool. I don't really know that this is like actually how the physics would like behave. But it looks darn cool. And I'm like happy just like messing around with it. Let's bevel these edges too. Actually, I just want to bevel. I'm going to bevel these. Wow, very cool. Again, I don't know. I don't know if this is like physics-based or what. Let me reset the origin. Like, is this physics-based? I have no idea. Now, the only problem, one of the biggest problems I faced was when you add the noise texture, now you're getting things that are like, they're connecting the lines, like right here. Like, these lines shouldn't necessarily be connected. I think the top and bottom lines are getting like merged, and I think that is because of this noise texture. So let me dumb it down to 0.01, and let's see what we get. Yep, notice how things are like a little bit smoother now, and I do think that has to do with the noise texture itself. But the reason I add the noise texture is because I want these lines to be like wavy, and I want them to be semi-realistic here. How long have we been streaming for? What time is it? Okay, we're good. All right. Yeah, this looks really cool though, regardless. And like it is cool that you can kind of like adjust this in like real time. Let's duplicate this thing within edit mode, as I just want to see something here. Like, what would happen if you had like, here is one thing I will say, guys. I do think that when you edit things in edit mode, it doesn't react the way that it should. I think it has to be a singular closed mesh. Oopsies. Yeah, I think it has to be a closed mesh. Actually, what is going on here? There we go. For example, if I take this, like I could remesh this. Let me do that real quick to show you guys the difference. So here's without a remesh. Here's with a remesh. Let's do like 0.2. I don't know. It's definitely a little bit different. See, I wonder why. See, like, here's what I don't understand. Why is it that this top line here isn't going over the top? It's almost like, I guess it is looking for that nearest point. Let me move this down a little bit. To be honest, guys, this is going to make you guys laugh. I don't know exactly what I've made here. I just know that it reminded me of like an aerodynamic simulation. So that's what I called it. This really technically isn't a true aerodynamic simulation. However, it does look really cool. and I'm happy with my progress. Let's rotate this a little bit. You can see it gets a little bit crazy here, but if you pause it, you can see like things are happening the way that you'd probably expect them to, right? All right, let's here's what we'll do to kind of like wrap this thing up. We are going to create a bunch of settings that you can utilize for your object. Does that make sense? So, or sorry, for your geometry node setup. So let me go ahead and select everything here, add in a sphere just to keep things simple. Or not. There we go. Okay. All right, we're just gonna keep our sphere. It just looks. It does look the coolest on the sphere. Let me unremesh it and see what it looks like. I love it. I love it. I'm really happy with it. All right, let's add some settings to a group input so that you guys can actually like customize this thing. Guys, coffee is like a must for geometry nodes. Like, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like the two things just go together so well. Okay, so what are the things we want to control? Well, I want to control the amount of lines. That's the very first thing I want to control. So let me add my group input. So remember, group input, guys, is going to show up here on the right. So whatever you connect is going to show up here. So I'm just going to connect this to a math node. And I do this because I like to keep things organized. Instead of adding, we just want to multiply by whatever the amount is. And then I'll just plug the value in here. And we'll do the same for down there. Oh, crap. Okay, let me just... There we go. Okay, I'm going to plug the values in here. Whatever value I choose over here will be reflected. However, right now, it should be set to an integer, not a... let me see this. It should be set to integer, not a float. Right, because right now, it's 0, so we shouldn't see any lines. Now it's 1 line. Now we see 2 lines, which is reflected on the top and the bottom. Now we'll see 2, 3, 4, however many lines we want. So now on the right, we can control that value. I won't call it value, I'll call it line amount. Okay, so that way we can control that value. Let's take a look at the next values that we can control here. Oh, okay, so this is our scale elements for our object. This will be considered like an offset. Right now it's at about 1.5. You can see that that's good because we have some surrounding air. If we want it to be a little closer, we can set it to like 1.2. Now you can see some of those lines are a little bit closer. But I want to be able to scale both of these individually. See, now it's a lot closer, right? So we are going to set this not to an integer, but we will use group input, and I'll set this to a math node as well. In this case, I think I'll multiply this by like a smaller number so that we have a little bit of finer control over this. Let's see how this works, and then we'll adjust the number as needed. Now remember, guys, we're multiplying the scale, which is right here. Let me just make sure I plug this into both sides. I know this is hard to follow because there's a lot of nodes and I'm zooming in and out. Right now, I'm just plugging this into the scale for our hit detection. So right now, the scale is set to very low. It's 0.4. If I set it to 2, now you can see how this works, right? And I can raise this up a little bit. Do you guys see how this is adjusting our simulation here? So I'm going to call this value, I'm going to call this offset. So that way we know like where, this is basically where the lines are going to hit. Actually, I'm going to call this collision offset because really this is where the collisions are happening. We want to offset them from that position. Okay, good. All right, let's see what else we want to control here. Oh, the speed of the simulation. In this case, that is going to be this offset position right here, but we need to use just the specific X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to do separate X, Y, Z. And oopsies, actually I'm going to do, no, I want to do combine XYZ. And then in this case it's 0.2, so I'll connect this here. Let me just see what happens here. In this case we want the Y to be what? What did I say? 0.2. But we'll connect it to a, we'll do multiply. We'll do multiply and then we'll connect that here and we'll say simulation speed. Now we can control the simulation speed of the top part. We just need to reset it for the bottom part as well, which is the first set position, which goes here. All right, let's see if that worked. Simulation speed is 0.4. Let's try 1. much slower, right? So this is where you can get interesting. Let's try 4. Oops, 4. Wow. Ooh, you know what? I don't know. See, here's where this gets really interesting to me. Like, why is this happening? Try 0.5. Whoa. Anyway, if I set the simulation speed to 1, does that work? What was my multiplication factor for this one? It was 0.5. Let's do, I think we tried, was it, oh my gosh, what was the original offset? It was 0.2. All right, we'll try 0.2. So right now, everything should be acting normally. Perfect. But if we raise this value, the simulation speed to 2, it should be a little smoother. So depending on what we want and the result that we want, we can change the simulation speed. All right, so we have the simulation speed, we have the line amount, and we have the collision offset. So these are 3 things that we can control here that I feel like are pretty cool. What else do we want to be able to control? Oh, we want to be able to control the size of the lines, which of course is controlled right here by our curved circle. So in order to control those, I'll just do another math node here. And I'll just do multiply by 1, keep it simple, and I'll connect that to the radius. Okay, and radius. Perfect. And then I just need my group input right here. And the group input will go into the top value. This value will be called curve thickness. And then you can see that I can adjust that on the fly right here. If I want my curves to be thicker, I can do that. If I want my curves to be thinner, I can also do that as well. All right, pretty simple. This is awesome, right? We have full customization over our geometry nodes setup, and that's kind of what I was looking for. All right, let's take a look at some other settings that we can adjust. How about this big mess, guys? This is a big old mess. Let me see if I can move this down. There we go. Really, this, I guess I can remain there. That's fine. Really, these 2 right here should be removed from the frame. They should be placed in the middle here. And these are this is our, why is things not showing up? There we go. This is just the thickness controller. Perfect. I love labeling things. It helps me a lot because I'm like, wait, what does this do? Oh, this is just the first set of lines. Wait, what is this controlling? I actually don't know. This is controlling the collision offset. Guys, another cool trick, I forgot, I should probably show you this as well. You can actually rename the node itself. Right here it says the label. That's basically multiply. But if I want to, I can set this to the align amount. And look at the node as soon as I press enter. Oh, look, it says the line amount. Perfect. So we can actually name our nodes, which is super awesome. Just don't confuse yourself because sometimes you're going to look at that and be like, oh, wait, what did I set to what? And is this math? Is this vector math? What is this? Sometimes it can get a little bit tricky. All right, another thing we can control is the scale of the noise. Right now, this is very noisy. This is not so noisy. If we wanted to, we could also control that. But I actually want to kind of mess around with my settings now and pretend that I just downloaded this as like a template and I'm messing around with the settings. I want more lines. I want my collision offset to be closer to the object. That looks good. My simulation speed, let's crank that up a little bit and see how that looks. Curve thickness, I'll reduce that a little bit. And then I'm going to duplicate my object and see how it's affected in real time. Ooh, looks like my curve offset might be a little bit too little. I want the offset to be a little bit more. That looks pretty good. I feel like we're getting like a decent offset there. Now, one thing I considered adding to this that I think I still might add is the ability to add multiple objects to your simulation. And I think to do that, we have to add the, oh my gosh, how could I forget? We have to add the ability to select a new object, right? Which is right here. Not join geometry, where is it? Group input. I want to be able to select an object for both of these. Okay, we'll plug that into the object info. So again, this is my group input being plugged into my object info so I can select a new object. If I delete this object and I press play, nothing's going to happen, right? Because right now, there's no object selected. So let me just add, you know what I haven't tried this on yet is the monkey. Let's try this on the monkey and see how it looks. Now, in order to select the monkey for our collision object, I click on my Geometry Node Setup, I use my eyedropper tool, and I select Suzanne. Interesting. It looks like the simulation speed is a little bit fast. Let's reset it to 1. Let's set it to 0.5. Still a little bit fast, but we're definitely getting some realistic, like, look at these little lines that are appearing right here. Look at these little, like, clusters. Now, it does seem to be working, like if we kind of zoom in here. I do feel like it is accurately going around Suzanne. What I don't like is that we're getting a line that's going like through the mesh. So let's go ahead and give this more points to raycast off of. Let's generate a subdivision surface. And let's also generate a remesh, because right now Suzanne has openings, right? The eyes are technically openings in the mesh. So really we're not dealing with a mesh that's like super high quality. We'll convert this to a mesh. We'll replay the simulation. And we're still getting, I think we still have some holes in the mesh. We do. Darn it, Suzanne. Hold on, let me go back to remesh. Let me like just zoom in on this, make sure there's no holes in the mesh. There might be. Let me duplicate this. All right, I don't think there's any holes in this mesh. Let's try this. Again, this is kind of annoying, and this is one thing I wish I could adjust about this. Do we have any lines that are going through the mesh now? I feel like we don't. Yeah, we definitely don't. Now, there's a few, if you really look close, there are a few that go through the front right here, but it's not too bad. Okay. This is much better. Much, much better. How awesome is that? And let's try to rotate Suzanne as the simulation is happening. So awesome. All right. Can you generate visual magnetic fields using geometry nodes? Yeah, I feel like you could. I don't know how, but I do feel like you definitely could easily do that. 100%. I do feel like this simulation is like done though, in terms of like, I'm pretty happy with it. The only other things I could really think about adding is like the ability, like right now you can see like the offset, like let me just adjust the offset so we don't get this like right here. That's why I love being able to create custom like attributes. Like right now, the offset allows me to actually not get as many collisions. I'm still getting a few, right? And it's funny because it hits the object and then it like really quickly bounces back. But I love that. I feel like it makes it so much more like realistic. This is awesome. Oopsies. I'm pretty happy with this. Let's like really crank this thing up. Let's see what this thing can do. I'm gonna add the line amount. Line amount is 9 right now. Now this could crash Blender, but let's try 20 and let's just see what it looks like. Seems to be doing okay. My computer can handle it, which is great. Let's pause it here on like frame 25. Wow. I mean, I love this. You know we got to test it with a car. So let me see if I can find a car in my downloads or like somewhere. Here's a car right here. This is from an old project with a particle sim. This is like before I knew about geometry nodes. This is how I did this kind of stuff. This is like from a really old tutorial, but I am gonna copy. Just look at the geometry of this car. I'm gonna copy this car. I'm gonna go back to my other project, paste the car in. We just press play real quick so I know where the lines are. We'll add our car right here. We'll move it down. Hide our monkey. Let's start with like 4 lines. And let's make sure we select our new object, which is the car. Oh, Lord. A little crazy. The other thing is this is not a closed mesh. If it was, you'd probably get something a little bit different. Yeah, let me take a look. Let me see if I can remesh this. Oh, this is not supposed to have a collider on it. Not that that makes much of a difference. Let me see if I can close this mesh. Let me go to remesh, I guess. Oh, Lord. Oh, okay, that might work. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I just want to see what this is going to do. Cool. Very cool. Let's adjust our collision offset. And at this point, there's just so many cool things you can do. Yeah, with the magnetic thing, I don't 100% know. Oh, here's what I love. Everybody see this line right here? This one right here? I love that like I wish all the lines did that. Why is that one doing that, but none of the other lines are? So cool. This is awesome. All right, let's bump it up. Let's do 20. Very cool. Pretty pleased with this. I am pretty pleased. Let me do 1.5. I'm gonna do less thick lines here. Now, the other thing that I was able to do, this was with a previous project, is I was actually able to basically calculate the speed at which the points were going, and based on the speed, like there was areas of resistance, like obviously like right here in the front, there would be a high area of resistance right where the wind first hits, and those areas I can color differently, right? The object auto-applied to smooth. Oh, you know what? We could add a subdiv to this, smooth it out even more. Or let's add a subdiv and see if the result's any better. A little bit. More to work with, right? Very cool, though. I'm, like, pretty pleased with this, honestly. I don't know why these lines are going down right here, but again, I'm, like, I really can't complain here. Let's put the simulation speed at 1. I just want to see what happens when we reset it. A little smoother. Let's put it at 2. It should just be smoother each time. And let's knock this down to 10. Let's knock it down to 4. It's cool. We still got some lines that are going inside of our object, and I don't know why. And I might have to do with the collision offset. Whoa, okay. Oh, huh. Something there. There's definitely something there. Something's happening here. Let me see what happens if I set my simulation speed to 1 now. What if we add a, just I'm curious. What if we add like a wing to the back? Like what if we just highlight a bunch of these? Hold on. This is going to be a horrible wing, but I just want to see what happens. You can really see the offset here. Because look, you can see the line building up here. So the offset is pretty intense. But I do feel like the offset helps a lot. Like the offset is pretty powerful. Yeah, that looks good. Everybody, thoughts on this? Again, this was like a really crude tutorial, but I do feel like it looks pretty good. I'm curious to see how this would look with volumetric fog and use this to generate paths through a landscape. Neat, aerodynamic-like effect. We can test it on a quick landscape. Here, let me just hide this. I'm just going to add in a plane real quick. I'm going to scale it up, subdivide it a bunch, and we'll just add like a quick displacement modifier to it. So we'll go to deform. This will be the last thing I do, and then I do have to hop offline here. Okay, we'll do a new displacement. We'll just add like a quick like clouds displacement just to give ourselves like a quick landscape. We'll do a little subdiv, you know, the usual. Maybe something like this. And then let's add a solidify to this so it's kind of like more of a solid shape. Solidify, that's fine. We'll do thickness, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. I'll just convert this to a mesh. And let's try it. Let's scale it down a little bit too. I am curious like what's going to happen with this. Let's select our object. Oh boy. It's a little messy. A little bit messy. Let me scale it up a little bit. Let me scale it up like a lot. It's definitely getting caught up in all these different things here. Let me see if I can remesh this. Let's see if that helps. Oh, collision offset, duh. Let's try that. I don't know if this is what you were imagining, but it does seem to go over some of the things that's being raycasted on. Another thing, we didn't really, I didn't do the third raycast, and I guess I could do that. Does it work with spinning turbines? I guess, no, it doesn't have to, I don't know if it has to be static. Let's try it. Let me do that. Let me reset it. I'll add a, I'll just here too, just to quickly see what that idea could look like. Let's just do this, right? Let's do something like, let's just pretend this is our turbine. Okay, we'll just give it like a quick bevel. Excuse me, and then we'll rotate it. Let me go back to frame 1 here. Insert, and then what's the last frame? God, I can't see my timeline. Up, we'll just go to layout. That's fine. There we go. All right, so we'll go to frame 30. We'll give it a little rotation on the Y. Just something like that. And let's select our object. Oh my God. I'm literally making this so difficult. Looks like it might be working. Let's make it go a little bit slower. It's rotating quite a bit. Let's do like that. Yeah, looks like it is reacting. Maybe not in the way that I would have hoped, but it is it is kind of working. Let's slow down the simulation speed to like 0.2. There we go. We're kind of getting more of an effect that I feel like we should be getting. Collision offset. Interesting. Something weird is happening here, though. It's like stopping. Let me try it. More lines. It is working, though, in a weird way. I don't know why something wacko is happening here. What is going on here? I'm adjusting the offset right now to see if we can get like a different result. This is like acting really strange, and I don't know why. It is kind of working in a way. I mean, I can see how this could look really cool if it was working the way that I wanted it to. Let me try a really, really slow simulation speed. Let's try a really, really fast simulation speed. I think it's having trouble detecting the hits, the actual collisions themselves, which is kind of not surprising because you can see it stops right here, right? Which is probably where I set it to stop in Geometry Nodes. We're getting some interesting things with these bottom lines here, though. Here, let's do even less rotation. Like really like a minimal amount of rotation. Interesting. Spaghetti dance. Correct. All right, now let's play it with nothing. Yeah, something's weird with this object. I do think the simulation's not working right now, and I don't know why. Hold on. Might be the collision offset. It shouldn't just be hitting and stopping. It should be like, is it the, maybe it's the object. I don't know. Could be. It could be the object. I don't know why it would be doing this, though. Weird. Let's try it too. This is like where you got to really mess with this. Okay, here we go. It's kind of working now. I guess like there is a certain combination of settings that are like just right that you have to get correct in order to make this work. But it does look cool regardless, and I'm pretty excited with it. All right. Time is it? It's about 1:40. Okay, we've been streaming for like about an hour. Is there any further like questions on the topic or anything else you guys would like to see? Again, this is like something you can completely customize on your own. I feel like it was pretty fun to throw together and like experiment with. It definitely does look the best with a sphere. It just, I feel like it always does. Let's just put that back and simulate it so I can see what it's looking like. And this is where you want to adjust your collision offset a little bit. There we go. You can kind of see where everything's interacting here. This looks really good though. Looks like we do have a question. Deciding if it wants to be X-rays or visible light. I know, it is kind of funny. Oh yeah, we'll do a quick shader on this. I'll just show you guys like how I could set up like a quick scene real quick. And then we'll be done with it. All right, let's just set up a quick environment texture and we'll go into cycles and like make a quick render. Right now we just have like these lights. I am gonna add a plane, scale it up. I'll just add this behind everything. We'll go this way. Yeah, that's fine. All the light is coming from one side. I don't love this HDRI. I'm swapping it out. Where's the one I like? There we go. That's it. Perfect. We'll go this side. And I'll probably add my own light to this, but for right now, I'm just going to make this background plane like dark. That looks fine. And then I'll shade this sphere smooth. I'll just give it like a metallic blue color or something. Something simple. That looks fine. And then we just need a light source. Area light is fine. Bring that above, scale it up. Make it like 500. Make it rectangular. Scale it out on the Y. Set up a camera. Set up our camera like this way. And we're going to need to adjust a couple things. I'll just make this 90 degrees all around. This looks pretty cool already. Very cool. I'll also go ahead and make this 1920 by 1080. Kind of keep it like YouTube size, if that makes sense. I will raise this value so that we only see what's in the camera bounds. And I feel like this is actually looking pretty good so far. One of the things we can do with, I'll show you guys how to set a material on this. I'm going to actually just add in a cube real quick. And we're going to set a material on this so that I can show you how to add the material to your Geometry Nodes lines. We're going to go to the Shading tab, Rendered View. I'll just make a new material on this cube. I'll call it Transparent. And then I'll go ahead and lower the alpha a little bit. Just something simple like that, like nothing crazy. Go over to Geometry Nodes. Click on your Geometry Nodes setup. Go all the way to the right. Right after Join Geometry, we're going to set material. And we'll just set it to transparent. And now it should have the same exact material. So if we wanted to like quickly change the material, we can go over here, change it to like pink or whatever color we want to. And now we have these lines that are like transparent and they look pretty cool. I'm going to try green. And then I'm going to go to my Geometry Nodes lines and raise the thickness a little bit. And now we have something that looks like this. And it looks pretty cool. Again, you guys can do like whatever you want. It doesn't have to be green. It can be like literally any color you want. But this is like kind of a cool way to do this. And a lot of people are probably thinking, okay, that's cool. But like, what if I want it to look like smoke? Well, you could do that if you want to. You could go ahead and unhide the cube, which is this one right here. And instead of a principal BSDF, you could unplug that and do a principal volume. Plug that into your volume. And now you have sort of like a smoky material that you can adjust the density of. Now it's not perfect, but it does look, it looks pretty good. Looks like semi-believable. If you really wanted it to be really believable, this is where you probably go in and adjust your shader editor, or you could go in and adjust your geometry nodes and like add some noise or things like that. But this looks cool so far. Like, okay, I'll just give you an example. If you go back into geometry nodes, go to your noise texture and like raise it up to 1. Look at how much more scattered it is. But then if you turn on motion blur, I bet you if you render this, let's do 100 samples. If you render this right now, just hide these things. It might look blurred enough where it might look like smoke. Let's just see. In this case, it does not. Why does it not? Maybe it's not going fast enough. Also, one of these cubes is not supposed to be showing. Let's see how fast it is. Okay, maybe it's not quite fast enough. Let's change the speed a little bit. Speed is not 1. Let's set it to 1. And let's try and render that again. But this time I'm going to turn up the shutter amount. Maybe we can get a better blurred effect. Or is it? Oh, no, I have to turn down the shutter. I forget which way it is. Is it turn down the shutter? I think it might be. It's weird. I'm not getting that blurred effect that I expected to have there. I'm trying to remember how do I do this? All right, maybe there's just not enough motion there. Let's do simulation speed of 5. Let's try that. I'm just surprised I'm not getting any motion blur here. Maybe geometry nodes, the motion blur with geometry nodes is handled a little bit differently. That's also potentially what it is. Weird. We're just getting some in the middle there. That's okay. I'm still pretty happy with this overall. And this is the part where you like get to have fun and play around with the different shapes and things like that. Like I could add another sphere right here. Now I have like a slightly different simulation. Also, the simulation speed is way too high. That's a little bit better. I enjoyed this a lot, though. This is the kind of stuff I love. We're going to keep experimenting with this, try to improve it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I am going to hop off the live stream, but if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. Let me know if you tried this. Maybe you found a better method of doing this. If not, no big deal. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you guys in the next live stream.